When are you going to talk about the railroad strike? Ugh, politics. I like how I Google railroad strike to pull a relevant article, and the very first thing I see is an article from The Hill saying how a railroad strike could send food prices soaring. The nation's supply of food could take a hit if railroad workers go on strike, driving up prices at the grocery store and limiting U.S. grain exports to countries facing famine. Yes, we're anti-strike for humanitarian reasons. Your your advocacy for workers' rights is preventing us from shipping grain to impoverished third world countries. As soon as next week, 115 freight rail workers could walk out if they cannot reach a new contract with railroads, potentially shutting down the national rail network that transports 20% of all grain shipments. While unions say they want to avert a strike, and Congress has the power to block it. Love that, by the way. Congress has the power to block a rail worker strike because it's considered like a essential infrastructure, right, or something like that. There's a power given to disperse striking when it comes to stuff like this, like the maintenance of the rail network or whatever. The U.S. food sector is rattled by the prospect of a national railroad shutdown in the middle of peak harvest season. What, do they force you to work at gunpoint? I yeah, yeah, a little bit. I think it's either they. Oh, hello. Sorry, I forgot what site we were on.
We had a Republican polling firm, or it looks like it's all your favorite people. The Koch, it's a kind of Koch affiliated group. The data was used to target Snapchat ads by groups including the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign, Planned Parenthood, etc. There's no indication the advertisers knew they were using this data.
Oh, I thought it would go on longer than that. Even a short-lived interruption would create a devastating ripple effect in the nation's fragile supply chain, said Lee Sanders. That's the point of a strike. Shut up! That's the point of a strike. Yeah, the fact that strikes disrupt the network is the point of the strike. That is why they do them. By the way, and this is absolutely a consequence of capitalism, it's really, really f***ed up how fragile our supply chains are, being the, like, wealthiest and most powerful country on the planet, you know? This is something that doesn't get talked about that often. But, like, capitalism is fantastic for finding the most economically efficient way of producing a product and getting it to your door. Look at Amazon. It's insane. It's, like, miraculous, okay? The problem is that the efficiency of these systems is streamlined for maximum shareholder return in the short term, meaning that there's no longevity or durability to these systems, you know? Like, we may be, like, our whole system is unfathomably advanced and convenient in a lot of ways, but all it takes is a tiny disruption to fuck everything, because there's no profit to be found in weatherproofing your system, you know? There's no like financial gain for a corporation to go like, yeah, we have a good supply line here. Let's spend an extra 20% on operating costs to make sure that it's not just, you know, incredibly effective and efficient, but also that it could withstand, say, like climate catastrophe or whatever. You know, redundancy is not part of the system. You know, redundancy is expensive. You don't want redundancy. Cutting out redundancy is part of building an efficient economic system, because redundancies are expensive. But redundancies are also good, because if one part of a system breaks, you want fail-safes, you want backups, you know? That's why our system is so fragile. Like, why is it that we have such an unfathomably efficient system for the production of goods, and the distribution of those goods, but you can still have stuff like the Texas electric net, or the electrical grid going offline? Or like, why is it that that like 20% of the world's cargo or whatever goes through the Suez Canal, you know? Why are there not two Suez Canals? No, really though, but like, you know what I mean, right? This is one of the reasons that I'm actually starting to move over a little bit on protectionism. You know, I don't think there's any inherent value to buying American, but like, man, if the world ever went to total shit, you know which countries would not be doing great? The countries that import all their food and export a ton of, like, extremely expensive and sophisticated electronic goods that would no longer be able to be produced under a climate catastrophe or something like that. Of course, America does have within its borders an enormous amount of agricultural, production power. It's just that's been going back recently. Yeah, well, there is a benefit to doing stuff locally. That's why the EU should federalize. I don't know if that would necessarily help. We still import vast amounts of our agriculture, China. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Better develop a taste for canned meat. Yeah. What's protectionism? Protectionism is the economic practice of like favoring local industry and local production. You want to make stuff local, buy stuff local, that kind of stuff. There are, in a lot of ways, protectionism is super fucking stupid, because you want to benefit as much from, what's the term, guys? I'm so tired. I didn't take Adderall today because I'm out. I'm out of my drugs. What's the term? Comparative advantage. Thank you, Bluestone. You generally want to take advantage of comparative advantage, which is when you try to maximize the efficiency of economic production by allowing countries that do what they do best to handle that thing. Like, let the food be produced by the countries that produce food the best. Let superconductors be produced by countries that produce superconductors the best. Don't try to build everything domestically because you can't, and you also can't do as good of a job as countries that specialize. It's essentially just specialized labor on an international level. Um, of course, Lancelot. Lean production lines are more sensitive to worker disruption, which is ironic. Well, that's like the effect of neoliberalism, right? The goal of neoliberalism seems to be to heighten the inherent dialectic contradictions in capitalism. Like, you had the Gilded Era, you had like the late 19th century, early 20th century boom of socialist and anarchist and union organizing. And then we had like the Great Depression, FDR, the New Deal, and we briefly got to pretend that capitalism wasn't going to lock us in an eternal cycle of boom and bust crises every decade, you know? And it seems like neoliberalism's goal is to strain everything back to the point where the material contradictions are heightened to their breaking point. Vaush, I want to mention this because most people get it wrong. The USA is the least trade-reliant nation on Earth. Most of the USA needs can be met with Mexico, Canada, UK, Japan, Korea, Australia. Financial domination of markets is US power, not your goods. Um, that's partially true, though the countries you just named are literally across the Atlantic and the Pacific. And that's also to maintain, the standards we've already developed to, or at least an approximate something near them. Whereas when it comes to like a lot of other countries, they have a much lower bar to keep to. That being said, yeah, generally speaking, America and our wealth and our trade relations, they do allow us to have a more reliable network than many other countries. Germany is highly dependent on export industry. If that goes to shit, Germany will go mad, I fear. At least you have the EU, right? So what you're saying is neoliberalism is practice. Yeah, all neoliberals are actually socialist accelerationists, you know? They look at Reagan, they look at Thatcher, and they think, this economic austerity is the best way to exacerbate the material contradictions that will lead to socialist revolution, of course. Is Thatcher dead? Thank God, yes, she is. Yeah, neoliberals were the true leftists all along. Yeah, Thatcher's having tea with the Queen. Do you have any political book recommendations? 1984, smartest political book ever made. It's about socialism and how socialists like to censor things. I shouldn't have drank that coffee too fast. Now my tummy hurts.